welcome to Chapter 3, Unit 3, Couples. In this we're looking at romantic relationships. There are 3 topics: love, divorce, and couples therapy. So 4 lessons in this first topic, love. This is where we cover the Etic and Emic approaches. Surprisingly, deceptively difficult topics, these ones. And then more examples of individualism and collectivism. So in this first lesson, we'll look at an Etic approach using Buss's cross-cultural research in mate preference and mate selection and attraction. So by the end, they should know what an Etic approach is and why psychologists use an Etic approach. As always, we start with the key terms: traffic lights. I hope that these units don't get repetitive. You know, there's 9 of these units of content, so I hope that students don't get sick of these, but I think because they're spaced out about every 3 or 4 weeks, you're starting a new one, they shouldn't get too repetitive. As always, I like to start with the crossword puzzle, introduce all this terminology, and then they do it again at the end. One of my favorite activities to do in class. Interesting, so I've done this in an all-boys school and a co-ed school. You get students and you ask them, what do men and women want? And so it's up to you how you do this. If you want to do this with your classes, when I taught in co-ed schools, I'd get the boys in small groups and then the girls in small groups and give them a couple of minutes and they would write down, what do you think, write down in the box in the workbook, for the men, what do you think men typically prefer? For the women, what do they think women typically prefer in a man? And then you can get them to guess. Okay, boys, what do you think the girls are looking for? Girls, what do you think the boys are looking for? And you can do it opposite. One way to get around the, gay kids' sexuality ideas is to simply say, what do you think men and women typically look for in a partner? As opposed to just assuming, that all your kids are straight and saying, what are you looking for in a partner? It's just a simple way to get around that without making a big deal about it. All right, and then they can look at the textbook, see if they were right. There's some bullet points there that show the typical things that men and women look for. And think, pair, share. Do they think it's different across cultures? And then how could psychologists find out? And this is introducing the idea of an Etic approach to research. So here, slides for chalk and talk explaining what the Etic approach is. And then here is the slides, what women typically want, what men typically want, and then you get them to think about why. So these are the traits. Why do they think they're attractive? And this could be pretty tricky. And then here we get into the evolutionary explanation. All right. There's a link where you can copy and paste masculinized, feminized faces, because I can't do it here for copyright reasons. All right. And so here are some explanations. So differences in physical features, essentially anything that suggests high levels of sex hormones. Chastity for men, the paternity uncertainty hypothesis. It might actually be the paternity certainty hypothesis. Basically, men have no way of knowing for sure that the baby a woman is carrying is their own unless she's chaste. Status, access to resources. And this is one where in this day and age, you can see why evolutionary psychologists get into trouble, a bit controversial, because, it seems to be tapping into gender norm stereotypes, although I'm not one to shy away from those. But I made sure this is not just my sexist, bigoted viewpoints coming across. This is all pretty well backed up by the research. But we can always remind students, look, these are just trends and averages. Okay, Etic versus Emic, bit more chalk and talk, and then time for students to jot down notes in their workbook. I think there's a bit of chalk and talk here, but I'm hoping that it's balanced out by the fact that this is just inherently really interesting content. I've got a blog post here that's got more information and links if they like, and there's some documentary names in the workbook that they can find. So that is it. We're looking at an Etic approach using cross-cultural similarities in mate preference that can be explained by evolutionary psychology. Alright, next lesson we're looking at is the emic